Welcome to Bills Nation Daily, your ultimate daily dose of everything Buffalo Bills. Hit that subscribe button and join the most passionate Bills fans as we break down all the latest news, highlights, and game analysis. Go Bills! The NFL world is buzzing with news that Ed Oliver, the standout interior defensive lineman for the Buffalo Bills, might be packing his bags sooner than fans expected. Rumors have started to circulate about tensions within the organization, with whispers suggesting that Oliver's departure could be imminent, shaking the very foundation of the Bills' defensive line. Sources close to the team hint at behind-the-scenes disagreements over contract negotiations, playing time, and long-term strategy. While the Bills have remained tight-lipped publicly, the inner circles of the NFL community are already speculating about the ripple effects this potential move could have on the team's performance, especially as they prepare for the upcoming season. Analysts are predicting a scramble for replacements, and rival teams are reportedly watching the situation closely, perhaps planning to swoop in and capitalize on Buffalo's uncertainty. Fans are divided between disbelief and concern, as Oliver has been a key force in stopping the run and applying interior pressure, a rare commodity in the league. Conversations on social media show a mix of speculation, support for Oliver, and criticism of the Bills' management for potentially mishandling a star player. The mood in Buffalo is tense, yet tinged with a sense of inevitability that some big change is on the horizon, and insiders say this could redefine the defensive identity of the team moving forward. As the whispers grow louder, questions arise about the timing and motivations behind Oliver's rumored exit. Was it purely financial, or did philosophical differences on defensive schemes contribute to a growing rift? NFL insiders suggest that while money is always a factor, the chemistry within the locker room and alignment with coaching philosophy can weigh just as heavily on a player's decision. For Oliver, whose on-field presence is both physical and cerebral, finding an organization that values his skill set and gives him a platform to excel might be the ultimate priority. There's talk that several teams with defensive needs are preparing preliminary pitches, subtly signaling that they would welcome a player of Oliver's caliber, possibly even offering a more prominent role than he currently has in Buffalo. The Bills, on the other hand, are reportedly attempting damage control behind closed doors, weighing the cost of retaining a potentially disgruntled star against the risk of letting him walk into a rival locker room. This strategic dilemma highlights the delicate balance between team cohesion and individual talent management in the NFL, a league where a single roster move can reverberate across multiple divisions. Meanwhile, media coverage has begun intensifying, feeding the rumor mill with insider scoops, half-confirmed leaks, and player reactions that are carefully dissected for any hidden meaning. Fans are monitoring every post, every interview, and every press conference with an intensity usually reserved for playoff games, sensing that a pivotal moment in franchise history may be unfolding. The tension is palpable, and even casual observers are drawn into the narrative, imagining how the defensive landscape could shift dramatically depending on Oliver's next decision. Sources close to Ed Oliver indicate that his agents have been in discreet conversations with other NFL front offices for weeks, a sign that he is seriously exploring options outside Buffalo. While there's no official statement yet, the pattern of discreet calls, unofficial visits, and private workouts points toward a strategic maneuver designed to maximize leverage. NFL insiders note that players of Oliver's caliber rarely leave without creating a domino effect, and any team acquiring him would instantly become a defensive threat, forcing opponents to rethink schemes and blocking assignments. The potential departure also raises questions about the Bills' long-term draft strategy, as losing an interior linchpin might push them to target younger, high-upside defenders in the next draft cycle. The ripple effect could extend even further, influencing free agency decisions, salary cap allocations, and the morale of current defensive teammates who have relied heavily on Oliver's ability to anchor the line. Fans are already imagining scenarios in which Buffalo must adjust its defensive philosophy, perhaps emphasizing speed over power or rotating linemen more aggressively to compensate for the absence of a disruptive presence like Oliver. Discussions among pundits focus on how this move could either hinder or ultimately liberate the Bills' defensive schemes, depending on how management navigates the transition. Even the coaching staff strategy may be under scrutiny, as critics argue that retaining top-tier talent requires not only financial investment, but also alignment with players' aspirations and respect for their professional contributions. Social media threads show a mix of nostalgia, speculation, and tactical analysis, reflecting the emotional and strategic stakes involved in what could be one of the most consequential roster shifts of the year. The narrative continues to unfold, leaving fans and analysts alike on edge, wondering how soon the reality of Oliver's potential departure will become undeniable. Early reports suggest that the discussions surrounding Oliver's future are highly complex, involving multiple stakeholders with competing interests and different perspectives. The Bills' management reportedly faces pressure to maintain a balance between rewarding a star player and ensuring long-term financial flexibility for future signings. Oliver's rumored dissatisfaction could be tied to a sense of underappreciation, perceived lack of recognition, or disagreement with the team's defensive approach, all of which are common flashpoints in high-stakes NFL negotiations. League insiders highlight that a player of Oliver's age, skill set, and marketability rarely remains static in one location for too long, especially when other organizations can offer not just money, but opportunity and prestige. Meanwhile, scouts and analysts are already projecting how his potential departure could reshape defensive rankings, run-stopping efficiency, and quarterback pressures for both Buffalo and whichever team acquires him. Fans have flooded forums, podcast discussions, and comment sections with speculation, debate, and anticipation, creating a digital ecosystem that feeds off uncertainty. The situation is further complicated by the timing relative to training camp, preseason games, and the looming regular season, which could leave the Bills scrambling to reconfigure depth charts and defensive packages. Rumors also point to internal tension among teammates, as the prospect of losing a core player sometimes triggers unease, competition, and shifts in locker room dynamics. Coaches are reportedly weighing contingency plans, testing alternative alignments, and quietly preparing for scenarios in which Oliver is no longer part of the equation. In a league where marginal advantages can determine playoff outcomes, the potential exit of a player like Oliver introduces both risk and opportunity, and insiders agree that the narrative will continue to evolve in unpredictable ways. Some believe that Oliver's potential move could spark a wider trend in the league, signaling a new era of player mobility and empowerment. Analysts point out that when elite defenders like him take control of their career trajectories, it often encourages others to explore options and challenge traditional structures. This narrative, while speculative, is gaining traction among media outlets and fan circles, fueling endless debates about loyalty, ambition, and the economics of modern football. Others argue that the Bills could retain Oliver if they make strategic concessions, possibly reshaping contracts or offering guarantees that align with his long-term vision. Every rumor is scrutinized. A casual quote from an assistant coach, a cryptic social media post, or a seemingly innocuous tweet can ignite new waves of speculation. Betting markets and fantasy football communities are paying attention too, as the potential shift affect projections, player values, and game predictions. Meanwhile, rival teams are quietly studying Buffalo's defensive schemes, imagining how a high-caliber addition like Oliver could immediately alter the competitive landscape. The intensity of the chatter underscores how intertwined perception and reality have become in professional sports. Fans feel they are part of the narrative, experiencing the suspense and drama almost in real time. Analysts continue to weigh options, draft implications, and free agent strategies, all while monitoring Oliver's interactions and public statements for subtle hints of his next move. The uncertainty surrounding his future is creating an atmosphere of speculation, excitement, and tension that shows no signs of dissipating, making this one of the most talked-about stories in recent NFL memory. The debate extends beyond Buffalo and reaches broader league discussions about talent retention, contract negotiations, and the value of interior defensive linemen in modern football. Experts highlight that players like Oliver are rare because they combine explosive athleticism with intelligence, technique, and the ability to impact multiple facets of the game. Losing such a player can trigger a reassessment, not just for the team involved, but also for competitors, as draft boards, free agent signings, and defensive schematics are all potentially influenced by one high-profile decision. Rumors suggest that Oliver's potential destinations include franchises known for aggressive defensive strategies, which could offer him the spotlight and leverage he seeks. Media narratives are amplifying every detail, from private meetings to travel schedules, as reporters dissect each piece of information for hidden significance. Even casual observers are engaging in analysis, speculating on how Buffalo might adapt and which teams are best positioned to benefit. The story continues to develop in real time, creating a feedback loop between rumor, reaction, and speculation. Each day brings new insights, hypothetical trade scenarios, and evaluations of the impact on both the Bills and the broader NFL ecosystem. Fans' emotional investment is palpable, reflecting the deep connection between community, identity, and allegiance in professional sports. As the rumor mill churns, one thing becomes clear. Whatever unfolds with Ed Oliver's future will resonate far beyond Buffalo, potentially redefining defensive strategies and team dynamics across the league. Behind closed doors, the intensity of negotiations is reportedly reaching a boiling point, with both sides carefully calibrating statements, meetings, and offers. Sources suggest that Oliver's camp is leveraging multiple potential destinations to maximize bargaining power, while the Bills' front office weighs loyalty, financial prudence, and team chemistry. Every reported interaction is analyzed, every cryptic comment amplified, and the rumor mill continues to grow exponentially, feeding fans' imaginations and fueling debates across platforms. Analysts emphasize that the timing of such a move is critical, particularly as preseason approaches and training camps become the proving ground for strategies and player integration. Losing a cornerstone like Oliver could force the Bills to experiment with depth chart rotations, defensive formations, and personnel decisions in ways that might not have been previously anticipated. Meanwhile, media outlets dissect public appearances, social media activity, and insider tips to piece together the narrative, often blurring the line between speculation and confirmation. Fans track every development, weighing emotional attachment against professional analysis, while fantasy football players assess the potential fallout on projections and team dynamics. The tension is intensified by the convergence of on-field strategy, off-field negotiations, and public perception, creating a multi-layered story that evolves daily. The buzz surrounding Oliver's future is emblematic of the modern NFL landscape, where player movement, media coverage, and fan engagement intersect in complex, unpredictable ways, making this saga one of the most captivating storylines of the season. Before we dive back in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest Buffalo Bills updates straight to your screen. And hey, don't hold back. Let us know your thoughts on today's news down in the comments. The timing of Ed Oliver's potential move seems almost cinematic, coinciding with the league's critical periods of training camp and preseason preparation. Insiders suggest that such timing may be strategic, leveraging maximum impact on the market and team dynamics. The intrigue surrounding his future has created a layered narrative involving media speculation, fan theories, and tactical analysis from NFL experts. Conversations within team facilities reportedly focus on contingency planning, defensive adjustments, and potential replacement strategies, highlighting the ripple effects a single player's decision can have across a franchise. Social media buzz intensifies daily, with fans dissecting interviews, social media posts, and cryptic comments for hidden meanings, often amplifying speculation into full-blown narratives. Analysts point out that losing a player of Oliver's caliber requires not just physical replacement, but also a shift in leadership, morale, and team identity, factors that are less tangible but equally critical. Rival teams are reported to be monitoring the situation closely, potentially positioning themselves to exploit Buffalo's uncertainty. The situation has transformed from a simple contract rumor into a multi-layered story about power dynamics, player agency, and strategic adaptation in the NFL. Every development is scrutinized for its implications on competitive balance, team cohesion, and league-wide perceptions, reinforcing the dramatic stakes of this evolving saga. Whispers around the league suggest that if Ed Oliver's departure becomes official, his most likely destinations are already narrowing to a handful of franchises that have both the cap space and the defensive philosophy to fully unleash his talents. Sources close to league insiders name organizations like the Dallas Cowboys, Chicago Bears, and Detroit Lions as possible suitors, each with unique incentives to bring him aboard. The Cowboys, for instance, are always in search of headline-grabbing moves and could pair Oliver with Micah Parsons for an explosive pass rush combination. The Bears, rebuilding their defensive identity, could view Oliver as a cornerstone for the next decade. Meanwhile, the Lions, on the cusp of sustained contention, might see him as the missing interior force to complement their young edge rushers. Each scenario fuels fan discussions, trade machine simulations, and endless speculation on sports talk shows. In Buffalo, the emotional impact of such a move is beginning to sink in, with longtime fans lamenting the potential loss while acknowledging the harsh realities of the modern NFL. Social media debates grow heated, with some blaming management for mismanaging negotiations and others insisting that Oliver's camp is simply doing what's best for his career trajectory. The sense of suspense intensifies. Insiders emphasize that the Bills' defensive scheme has revolved heavily around Oliver's unique blend of quickness, leverage, and relentless motor, traits that make him a nightmare for offensive lines. Losing him would not only mean subtracting his statistical production, but also forcing a recalibration of the team's entire approach to gap control, blitz packages, and pass rush timing. Coaches would need to adapt quickly, perhaps leaning more on rotational depth or experimenting with hybrid defensive fronts to mask the absence of a dominant interior presence. This could open opportunities for younger players to prove themselves, but it also carries the risk of exposing vulnerabilities against elite offenses. On the market side, rival general managers are calculating how Oliver's availability could tilt competitive balance, particularly in divisions where interior pressure is a deciding factor in playoff outcomes. Fantasy football analysts are weighing whether such a shift would elevate or diminish his statistical output, depending on his new team's usage patterns. Within Buffalo, the locker room mood is reportedly mixed. Some players are hopeful he stays. Others resign to the idea that business decisions often override personal connections. The front office remains publicly composed, but privately, they're said to be running through multiple trade and free agency contingencies to soften the blow if negotiations collapse entirely. If Oliver indeed moves on, the psychological blow to Buffalo's defense could be as significant as the tactical loss. Players often speak of trust and familiarity, especially in the trenches, where cohesion can mean the difference between a game-saving stop and a crushing first down. Replacing that trust is not as simple as signing another player. It takes time, shared battles, and mutual understanding built over seasons. Opposing teams know this, and any early season matchups against the Bills would likely test that cohesion mercilessly. From a fan engagement perspective, the situation has become a lightning rod, drawing national coverage that might otherwise be reserved for quarterback controversies or high-profile trades. Every NFL Network segment, every ESPN debate, every podcast mention adds fuel to the narrative that Oliver's saga is a league-wide storyline, not just a Buffalo issue. Sponsors, local businesses, and community initiatives tied to Oliver's presence in Buffalo might also feel the effects, showing how deeply interconnected a star player can be with the city's identity. As speculation mounts, the NFL calendar looms like a ticking clock, with each day bringing training camp closer and reducing the window for smooth transitions. The longer uncertainty lingers, the more disruptive it becomes for all parties involved. One factor that keeps surfacing in insider reports is the question of Oliver's legacy in Buffalo and how it might influence his decision. For a player who has given his prime years to a franchise on the brink of Super Bowl contention, Leaving now could be seen as both a bold career move and a gamble with unfinished business. Those close to Oliver say he's deeply competitive and values the chance to win above all else, which means any new team would need to offer not just money, but a realistic path to postseason glory. In contrast, some argue that staying in Buffalo, despite current tensions, might still provide his best shot at a championship given the team's offensive firepower and overall roster talent. Negotiation leaks hint at the Bills offering creative contract structures, perhaps with performance-based incentives, to bridge the gap between what Oliver seeks and what the team can afford under the cap. Publicly, both sides maintain diplomatic tones, but seasoned reporters detect an undercurrent of strategic posturing. The city, the team, and the league remain in suspense, waiting to see if this chapter ends in reconciliation or in a blockbuster move that reshapes the NFL's defensive landscape for years to come. That's a wrap for now. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of all things Buffalo Bills, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. See you in the next update.